My name is Naomi Pabst. I'm a wellness warrior and a healer, and I'm a writer and a speaker and an intuitive consultant. Prior to doing that work, I was a professor for 12 years. 2 years I taught at Harvard, 10 years I taught at Yale, teaching Black studies. During that journey, I went from being a diehard intellectual to discovering that at core I was more of an artist of life, and I embarked on pursuing my calling, the calling of my soul. I am of both Swedish American heritage and African American heritage. So at birth, largely because of racial tensions in the 1960s when I was born, I was placed for adoption by my Black and white parents. And I was thereby raised in Canada by an immigrant father, white, born in Kenya and raised in Germany. And then he migrated to Canada in his early 20s, met my adoptive mother, who was a WASP, a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant Canadian woman. They married, had 2 children of their own, and then I was raised with them, and then my younger brother, who's Black and white as well, and he's adopted. When I turned 19, I was living in London and working at Harrods on a Canadian working abroad visa. And I decided upon my birthday that I was going to do a genetic search. That very fall, right when I started college, they reunited me. I got the notification that they'd found my birth parents and that they had gotten married. And they called me later that very night and we talked on the phone for hours. Then over the next couple of weeks, we talked and talked and talked on the phone. Now, the biggest way that meeting them contributed to my blossoming life purpose was in coming to understand the degree to which race itself as an issue was the reason why I was placed for adoption. So I was born in 1968, 1 year after a famous court case called Loving versus Virginia, which took place in 1967, where the Supreme Court rendered marriage between Blacks and whites legal in the United States. It's very, very recent. It's just 51 years ago now. Discovering that that social landscape had had everything to do with the fact that at that time my parents didn't see how they could be viable as a family only galvanized and catapulted and catalyzed my own mission to heal race and to offer racial reorientation and to offer pathways toward racial evolution. It profoundly deepened my passion to serve in that way and to offer a teaching and a healing around the healing of race. I went off to do a PhD in California, the University of California, Santa Cruz, and I studied with the advisor, Angela Davis, scholar activist, was my dissertation advisor, and she was absolutely fantastic. And I learned to apply to the issue of what is Blackness, who counts in the category, and how can we get along better across our differences. 5 years into my 7 years of grad school, I had a baby and I became a single mother. And that baby opened my heart. A heart I kind of didn't realize fully that I had. I was living so in my mind. I finished my PhD and secured a postdoc at Harvard, which was amazing, especially as a single mother. So there I was a few months into teaching at Harvard when, boom, this big awakening happened that connected me to my soul, my heart, my intuition, my love for my fellow human beings. I think that happens to so many new mothers, is like the stakes and the consequences of how we're living on this planet become so much more pronounced. I wanted a better world for her. And I had a feeling that academia wasn't the right place for me to be sharing my message. How that happened is my daughter, who was 2 at the time, now able to speak, started evidencing her own being psychic. So at first I was sort of dismissing or poo-pooing my daughter's pronouncements, right? As most rational academic type people would. And then I started to realize that I myself sounded irrational in the face of her psychic pronouncements. So when she told me, for instance, that I needed to move my car because of street cleaning, she's 2 years old, it was 6 a.m., she specifically woke me up to tell me that, and she was absolutely right. That was a moment of humility for me, because that's when I realized I was the irrational one in trying to explain that away. She simply knew. Even though there was no way to know how she knew, she just knew. She knew within herself, and it was clear because enough things like that had happened at that point that that's what woke me up to it. So I started a research project. So that research project, funny enough, which I embarked on as a Harvard postdoc, very quickly changed my whole life, because not only was there a ton of research completely validating and vindicating the psychic realm, it's not even really that mysterious, it's all there, it's not even controversial. Just because some people don't believe in it, it has nothing to do with whether it's viable or true. I mean, that's pretty much scientifically proven. Even the government uses psychics in their various missions, and it's just taken for granted as an aspect of the self, our sixth sense, right? We all have one, and we all know full well that we have one. So for me, this journey of wanting to use my intuition was really about helping people. It wasn't about some party trick like, oh my God, intuition is real. It just went right beyond that to, wow, my daughter really helped me. Now my intuition is activated and I really want to use it to help people. How can I help people have better lives? How can I help people solve their problems? How can I help, contribute to making this world a better place? As I started offering readings, intuitive consultations to friends and family, they started sending their friends and family. And then they sent their friends and family. So it started off really, really small and secretive. The only way it turned into a business was when I started having to tell people I literally couldn't take any more people. You can't send your friend, you can't send your mom's boyfriend, you can't, because I'm a full-time professor and I don't have time for this. So then people started offering to pay me. They're like, well, for a couple $100, would you see them? So I did. I started taking the consultation fee, and then it turned into a little side business. I still didn't expect it to grow, but by the end of my 10 years at Yale, it was, it had grown to hundreds of people, total strangers by that time. I didn't even know where they were coming from, all by word of mouth. The business had sort of developed before my very eyes, and I was of service in that way, and something had to give. So I put in my resignation at Yale 8 years in. I put in a 2-year notice, letting it be known I would be walking away to pursue the calling of my soul, which is exactly what I did. When I shifted from being a professor to an intuitive and actually left the socio-cultural status, when I left that behind and replaced it with, oh, I'm an intuitive, it changed my life dramatically. I kind of had to take a demotion, a status demotion, which I was more than willing to do. I was compelled to do for the sake of the calling. I would do anything to heed this calling. I would do anything to help people using my intuitive gifts. The call to do so was so much stronger than the call to serve as an academic. There was no debate or dilemma in my mind. So it was a choice that really wasn't even a choice. So there are a lot of different ways a person can be intuitive. So clairvoyance is like seeing things, clairaudience is hearing things, clairsentience is sensing things. My most powerful form of intuition is called claircognizance. So claircognizance means it's like a way of literally knowing things that it would seemingly be impossible to know. I also use tarot cards, and I love tarot cards. They're nothing other than a way to activate your own natural intuition. They're not anything strange or dangerous or risky. They're just cards. They are just cards. But the cards, when used with intention, activate the intuitive channels. There are all kinds of mediums, ways to activate your own intuition that include tarot cards and pendulums and cowrie shells and you name it. There are so many different ways of doing it. I work with thousands of people helping people solve their problems and working in a very intimate capacity with them, from politics to modeling to acting to media people, lots of Hollywood celebrities, lots of authors and people in publishing and top agents, a lot of people at the top of their field, a lot of game changers. But guess what? When we serve other people, it deeply serves us. I mean, it was the most incredible anthropological study. It was only done with the intention of being of service to any one individual that came to me. But now, over, having been doing that work for about 15 years now, I sure learned a lot about my fellow human beings. And so that's been a really powerful part of the journey. And all of that goes into the next steps, which is deeper understanding of human beings, how we can get along across our differences, how we can live an idea of oneness, human oneness and interconnection that's tangible and real and not abstract, and how we can really understand who we ourselves are for the sake of being able to better understand who other people are, to honor and accept, and thereby just literally improve human relations. I encourage everybody to just live purposefully. Life purpose doesn't have to be this, huge, overwhelming call to action, live your life purpose. But living purposefully, actually attending to one's passions, doing the things one's passionate about, finding more purpose in one's life, orienting yourself in that direction and a little bit away from, again, societal doctrine around what we woulda, coulda, and shoulda been doing, societal expectations, cultural conditioning. So I do believe we all have a purpose, and that it starts to reveal itself to us, not through searching for it, but through pursuing our passions, through living purposefully, through designing our lives so that we're actually getting around to the things that we most care about. It doesn't have to be full-time. You don't have to quit your job to do it. It just means a sort of a reorientation into the things that truly matter to you. Are you actually engaging in the things that matter most to you is where it starts. That's the purposeful life. We all have an inner call to live purposefully, and we all have the capacity to live a lot more meaningfully than our society would lead us to believe is possible for any one of us.